Marjorie Taylor Greene is an outspoken representative for Georgia since 2021. She graduated from the University of Georgia with an associate's in business. Amongst other things, she is a businesswoman who is straight up about that business. Okay, so for years they've pegged MGT as a conspiracy theorist,
Yep.
as she's alleged involvement, the government's involvement in everything from 9/11 to COVID-19 to even climate control. Okay, so in 2021, MGT filed articles of impeachment for Joe Biden, saying that he misappropriated USID AID funds and to to get Hunter Biden free from investigating from overseas in
And no one
Ukraine.
believed her.
Nobody believed her. And so for that, the House of Representatives, they voted to remove Green from all her House committee rules. 11 Republicans even voted with Democrats to make that decision. Okay, so she was taken completely out of the situation basically for talking too much. Yo, so now she's back. She's got all her receipts. And yo, she's ready to bust some heads off
This might
top.
be the year of
It's
receipts.
going down. She's brought the receipts and she has a vendetta. My name is Marcus Russell.
Alex W, man.
This is the Marcus Russell Show. Yo, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button. Let's get right to
See it.
it.
Thank you, witnesses, for your testimony. Again, Mr. Unger, I apologize. We can also confirm the World Program posted that the recent pause concerning in-kind food assistance to WFP has been rescinded. This allows for resumption of food purchases and deliveries
Madam Chair?
using USAID.
Madam Chair, are we going member to member, or do you get to make a speech in between each witness?
Yo, all right. I'm gonna make a couple stops in this video because I want to explain everything because this is a dope house meeting. Okay, so this is a DOG House Committee meeting where she's recommending investigations for who's going to be investigated and possibly prosecuting. So she basically just began by explaining that they rescinded the USID's distribution of foods. All right, and so any food stuff we're going to continue. Like, so she jumped that off, but then she's going to jump right off to how Hunter Biden and was it being investigated, and then Joe Biden basically
Saved the day.
with $1 billion leverage. Let's keep going.
If you're going to
As-
offer evidence or
You're
testimony,
not. You're not
you should be
recognized.
in the clock.
You're not recognized. It's
Sure I
my
am.
time.
Sure I am.
I now recognize myself for 5 minutes of questions.
Mm.
And this committee, based on this hearing and witness testimonies, will consider recommending investigations and criminal referrals. When Joe Biden was president, his son Hunter was on the board of a Ukrainian energy company called Burisma. The prosecutor general of Ukraine at the time, Viktor Shokin, was investigating Burisma for corruption. Biden threatened, and it's on video, to withhold $1 billion of USAID grant to Ukraine if Shokin wasn't fired. Mr. Primorak, is USAID supposed to be used as leverage by a president to protect his son?
No, we call that corruption.
No, we call that corruption, baby.
Mr. Primorak, in your estimation, roughly what percentage of USAID funding is doled out to bad actors or to efforts that don't have the best interests of Americans in mind?
I think what troubles me most is learning, I believe last year, following the hard work of the House Foreign Affairs Committee and Senator Joni Ernst, that USAID has been paying out over 50% to overhead charges. The Office of Inspector General of USAID criticized the agency for not knowing the overhead charges being handed out to all of these actors for $142 billion of disbursements. That is extremely troubling.
Yes.
Okay, let's start right there. So that's receipt number one. She asked him exactly how much money was USAID was spent and where. And he said, I find it troubling that more than 50% of USAID's money was spent on its overhead. That means they paid themselves more than 50%. And he had the exact number amount, more than $142 billion just last year.
The reason why this should be a problem, guys, is because you're paying for it. This
We
money isn't
paid,
appearing
right,
out of thin air,
142, they paid
you know?
themselves.
And if you don't pay for this, you go to jail.
All right. What else did they spend the money on?
Facts.
Mr. Primorak, Samantha Power Biden's USAID administrator openly spoke about her agency's efforts to promote democracy around the world. In your estimation, Mr. Primorak, is that what she was doing? If not, what was USAID doing during the Biden administration?
Let me cite the Holy Father, Pope Francis, who accused USAID and other donors of promoting ideological colonization, pushing a radical ideology onto the developing world that is anti-family and anti-life.
Okay, let me run that back. She said, well, what about this chick Pam that's supposed to be around the world spreading democracy? Premerick said, even the Pope has cited the UN and USAID for promoting religious ideology in other countries. Basically, they're colonizing. You know what I'm saying? And the USAID is sponsoring religious agendas and basically spent tens of millions of dollars on this colonization program that they're doing in developing countries.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So when they do spend the money, they spend it to colonize or spread propaganda. And even the Pope himself is
Trying to
like,
have hands in everything, man.
yeah, come on, cut it out.
It has been asserted that USAID spent tens of millions of American taxpayer dollars to promote propaganda in Brazil in the lead up to the Bolsonaro-Lula election in 2022. It has been claimed that this funding was used to pass censorship laws and silence Bolsonaro's online presence, and even bar him from running for office in the future. Mr. Primorak, can you offer any insight into these allegations, or at least comment on whether the U.S. should play a role in toppling democratic processes around the world?
I think what we saw was USAID weaponized by the Biden administration and by Samantha Power to attack any party that was conservative. It just didn't happen in Brazil. It also happened, for instance, in very pro-America, Poland and Hungary as well.
Okay, so she said that they spent tens of millions of dollars in Brazil. Last year they had an election. They spent it to pass censorship laws so that the guy couldn't have an online presence. His administration, the Biden administration, weaponized the USID not only in Brazil but in Turkey and in Hungary, toppling their democratic positions and basically attacking conservative parties all over the world.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Force to be reckoned with, man.
Oh my God, they're colonizing, tearing down parties all. Now, what if somebody got involved with our voting process?
How would that end?
I bet they
I
have.
think you guys got to go back in this video that we're recording at least 3 minutes and just listen to what he just said. They're trying to control the world with the media and just by taking from people.
And getting involved with voter election.
Yep.
Now imagine if they involved with voter election. This is the USAID office that DOGE has been attacking. If they're doing this all over the world, you know they're doing it to us. They're spending our money to do it to other people.
One of the most extensive examples of regime change operations fueled by USAID is that of their role in the Syrian civil war aimed at toppling Bashar al-Assad. Reports from DD Geopolitics and other sources estimate that USAID funneled over $15 billion into Syria over a decade, covertly funding opposition groups, mercenaries, and anti-government networks under the cover of humanitarian aid. This included support for militant factions and propaganda efforts, often in collaboration with the National Endowment for Democracy. The operation culminated in Assad's overthrow in 2024 by Western-backed groups, with USAID's financial trails documented in congressional budget reports and criticized by Syrian officials as interference masked as assistance. Mr. Roman, do these kinds of activities carried out by an American agency make Americans safer at home, or do they risk embroiling us in more deadly and costly foreign conflicts?
When the agency is doing it according to the way in which represents American national security interests, it's correct. But when it's abused for political purposes, ideological umbrage, and sponsoring Islamism, which is inherently anti-American, it is the worst exhaustion of American taxpayer money that can be thought of, especially when it leads to the loss and danger to American lives.
Yo, that's the big one. A USAID basically sponsored the Syrian civil war, and overthrew their government. We gave money, spent more than $15 billion in 10 years. That's what she said, sponsoring militia groups, anti-government groups, and even mercenaries to eventually overthrow the government. You know what I'm saying? And there's a paper trail in our budget that even the Syrian government has got a hold of that proves of that we basically sponsored to have their government overthrew.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? And so interfering with other governments, how is that going to affect normal Americans? Of course, that's going to make these countries hate us. And we're not even doing it to them. What do you think? Should America be involved with toppling democratic processes around the world?
a great question.
Should we be sponsoring mercenaries and militia groups to overthrow governments? You know what I'm saying? Should America be spending $10 million to spread propaganda, silence political elections in Brazil? Should the president leverage $1 billion to have a Ukrainian detective assigned to investigating a Ukrainian energy company that his son was involved with corrupting fired? You know what I'm saying? So check it out. When Trump uttered those exact opposite sentiments to the Ukrainian president, they called it collusion and tried to impeach him.
Yeah,
All this time, they've been
they're still
saying
trying to do
that, yeah,
something
they
with.
still trying to say this. So all this time, they've been saying MGT was a conspiracy theorist, and they even barred her from her duties. But this time, she came back with the receipts, y'all. And so somebody's going to be held responsible, held accountable for all of this mess. You know what I'm saying? And they have a whole council that they're trying to press charges, criminal charges against these criminals. For real. Tell me what you think.